All right, hi again. I'm Megan. Welcome back to our second class in this series of four. This one is about reducing sodium intake. Let me make sure I have my chat up in case you guys want to say anything. I'll be paying attention. Okay. First, I wanted to re-examine what we talked about last time. This is a slide that shows how we can include our recommended foods and limit the ones we want less of and still have a full plate. We discussed using a 9-inch plate to help with portion sizes and trying to drink sugar-free beverages. No pressure, Brenda, but does anybody have any examples of native plates they had since last session or any ideas for plates in the future?
You know, not really. I struggle with eating because I had a gastric bypass surgery.
Okay.
And so I've been using a small plate ever
Oh, yeah.
ever since, and mainly I I have to focus on my protein, but
Yeah.
I get yeah, and so I have protein and vegetables on my plate. So it doesn't look a lot like what other people do, and I eat more meals during the day than other
Oh,
people.
yes, fantastic.
I can only eat about a cup of food at a time. So anyway,
Absolutely. Yeah. So your plate looks a little bit different and you're used to using a smaller plate size to keep your portions smaller. Okay, this is a pie chart that shows the ratio of grains to fruits, to vegetables, to protein, to dairy that we should be consuming on the DASH meal pattern. Ideally, more than a quarter of your food should be fruits and vegetables, and that's 4 to 5 servings each per day. And your grains should be 6 to 8 servings per day and should be more than a quarter of your food. As a reminder, we have used the term diet to refer to DASH eating, and we may even call it the DASH diet, but we want to think of it as a lifestyle change, a meal pattern. We want to be making small changes that can last more than a couple months. We want to take the little steps that we can maintain throughout our lives, no matter how stressed out we are or limited on time or how our emotions are affecting us. Just small changes that we can sustain is really the point of the DASH meal pattern. So we're supposed to do about 6 1-ounce servings of lean protein a day. Last week, Susan had a question about grass-fed beef and what we mean when we say lean protein. We're talking about proteins that are low in saturated fat, such as beans, salmon, eggs, game meat, skinless chicken breasts. Much, but not all grass-fed beef is lean. And it's just one of those cases where you have to be a detective and look at the nutrition label. Now let's talk about the real. How has the last couple of weeks been? How did your goals go?
well, I'm pretty consistent in although okay, so like I've talked with Alyssa before about because my blood sugar has been excuse me, has been bad, but I talked with Alyssa about cutting down on my sweets because that is the yeah. Although sweets really hurt me badly. So I've been doing that and my blood sugar has gotten a lot better.
Oh,
So
fantastic.
yeah.
Awesome. Let's see. Some people talked about changing their plate size. Some people talked about wanting to increase activity. And you're probably doing a really good job of eating your fruits and vegetables.
Not fruits so much.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the capability with the protein to really sneak in fruit, but
Okay.
I'd like to try because I love fresh fruit especially. I have had apples, so I can eat about a half an apple at a time. So
Right, that, yeah, absolutely. Oh, and it looks like Nikki's been increasing her activity, more walks. Great job. Great job. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, let's do a little check-in here. If you're here for yourself or to support a loved one, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it to manage high blood pressure for you? And no answers are wrong here. They're all right answers.
10.
Awesome.
I don't want to have a stroke.
Yeah, yes.
Being a diabetic, that already, makes me at a higher risk for it. So, yeah, it's very important for me.
Sometimes these health conditions like hypertension, we don't feel them until it's a crisis. And so kind of like diabetes where you're not feeling something until it's way off. So sometimes it's harder to say that it's extremely important when we have trouble noticing it. But you're a 10. You feel like it's extremely important. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's why I decided to take part in this is, well, my blood pressure has not been too terrible, but I take medicine for it, see, and eventually, I'd like to maybe go off of the medicine because, I don't mind taking medicine. I know it's important, but at the same time, um, always my goal is to not take as much medicine as I do.
Absolutely. Good goal to have. Okay, by the end of class today, you'll be able to understand what sodium is and how it affects your blood pressure, identify low and high sodium foods, choose lower sodium options for your meals, lower your sodium intake by using 3 different methods of action, and implement changes in your diet through a classmate action plan. So what have you heard about sodium and blood pressure? Maybe that it causes you to retain fluids.
Yeah, actually, Nicole and I discussed last week what about sodium and blood pressure. I think we did. Um, yeah, that it causes you to retain fluids, and just in general purposes is not such a good thing. I mean, we have to have a certain amount,
Yep,
but yeah, in order to survive. But too much is no good.
you're absolutely right. We do need sodium to survive, but too much, that's where the problems come in. Absolutely. Well, I'd like to share some more information about sodium and blood pressure today. The good news is that the food choices you make can help you manage your blood pressure. Nutrition is very important in preventing and controlling disease states. Nutrition affects our blood pressure greatly, which is why it's so important to monitor our food choices to protect our heart health. Even if you're on some medication for managing blood pressure, nutrition choices still can help or hinder the medical treatment you're receiving. But I do want to say, most importantly, nutrition is not a replacement for regular treatment. So what is salt and sodium? Salt is made up of sodium chloride, 40% sodium, 60% chloride. Most sodium we consume comes from processed foods that already contain high amounts of sodium. But like we were saying earlier, sodium is found in the human body and accounts for many processes, including fluid balance, muscle functions, nervous functions. We need it. Sodium works in conjunction with potassium, like we talked about last session. So just making sure that you're having enough high potassium foods to kind of counterbalance that sodium intake. Really, really important. How much sodium is in salt? Well, 1 teaspoon has 2,300 milligrams. To me, at first seeing that kind of blows me away because I think about my recipes when I'm making soup or any meal at night. how much salt I'm adding, teaspoons of salt to the meal, and to know that 1 teaspoon has 2,300 milligrams. When I was first learning about it, she to me. Okay, so the last slide said that 1 teaspoon has 2,300 milligrams, and the body only needs 500 milligrams of sodium to function. What do you think about that? Anybody shocked by that?
No, not really.
Okay.
I mean, I know it seems like they add salt to everything, even
Yeah.
to like the chicken breasts and stuff that you buy.
Yeah.
There's salt in them.
Yes.
So it's scary to think about.
Yeah, once you start reading labels, it gets kind of nuts. You're like, this has this much sodium. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it can be pretty surprising. Okay, so this graph shows that the average American consumes 3,400 milligrams of sodium per day. And the American Heart Association recommends people with high blood pressure consume 1,500 milligrams. And the dietary guidelines for the general population, they set its recommendation at 2,300 milligrams to prevent high blood pressure. So this just kind of shows you, we need 500 milligrams to survive, to get our body functions under control, and 2,300 to prevent high blood pressure. 9 out of 10 Americans consume more than the recommended amount of sodium. Who should be concerned about sodium intake in their diet? We discussed the at-risk groups last time, and just so you know, this accounts for half the population that should be concerned about sodium intake. So it's kind of affecting everybody. Okay, now I have a short video from the British Heart Foundation. Let's see, it's pretty good.
Why is too much salt bad for you? Eating too much salt can be bad for your blood pressure. Your kidneys help control your blood pressure by taking water out of your bloodstream. Salt contains sodium. Too much sodium in your blood pulls the water back in. More salt means more water in your blood vessels, and that means higher pressure. Over time, high blood pressure makes your blood vessels work harder. To cope, their walls thicken, reducing the space inside the blood vessels. Your blood pressure rises even more, and less blood may get to your organs. Blood carries oxygen and other nutrients around the body. Less blood to your heart can cause pain known as angina, or even a heart attack. Less blood to your brain can cause a stroke or a type of dementia. High blood pressure contributes to around half of heart attacks and strokes. Adults and children over 11 shouldn't eat more than 6 grams of salt a day. Six grams is a level teaspoonful. That's the same as 2.4 grams of sodium. Younger children should eat less. 3/4 of the salt we eat is hidden in ready-made food. They may not even taste salty, like bread and breakfast cereal. What can you do? Check food labels. Use the colour codes. Green equals low in salt. Choose brands with less salt. Some even have lower salt versions. Don't add salt when you're cooking. Add flavour with black pepper, herbs, spices, and lemon juice. Can you spot salty foods? bhf.org.uk/salty-surprises.
Okay, so that video was pretty good. The only drawback about that video is it's from the British Heart Foundation, like I was saying, and so over there in the UK, they have green labels on their food that have less salt. Not something that we have yet, but there are some labeling things that that you can look for that we'll talk about, looking for less salt. What did you think about the video?
I was surprised at how much salt they recommended for children.
Oh yeah, 1 milligram, 1,000 milligrams.
Yeah, I was like, wow, that seems like a lot, but you know, I guess I don't know. Why? I wonder why that is.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. It does seem like a lot considering that we only need the 500 milligrams to function. I think it's just really hard to limit because so much salt is hidden in foods. Now we'll talk about efforts we can put forth to lower our sodium intake. Eating less sodium can reduce our risk of high blood pressure. But what do you think are the top sources of sodium in the American diet?
Snack foods,
Snack foods, yeah. How about some specific ones?
potato chips.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, salty.
Yeah.
Nikki on the chat says bread. That's a good one. It's usually a sneaky one. Okay, let's find out. Okay. Salt is also added for preservation, not just for taste. So that number one, breads and rolls, might be surprising. Oh yeah, and Christine says drinks like pop, absolutely. Another one where it's kind of hidden where you don't taste it, but it's still there. And each serving might not have a lot, but it adds up because we're eating the breads and rolls throughout the day. Something like sandwiches, it has a combination of things, like we're counting the bread, counting the lunch meat, we're counting the condiments as all things that contain a lot of salt. So the reason that poultry is listed is a typical American diet. We eat a lot of like fried chicken, chicken nuggets, chicken tenders, and chicken by itself already has a naturally occurring amount of sodium. So when we are seasoning those and breading them, we're adding a lot of salt. What do most of these foods have in common? I would say that they're all processed. More than 75% of the sodium we're consuming comes from processed foods. One slice of cheese pizza has about 600 milligrams of sodium. And that's not even if you're getting pepperoni on your pizza. One slice of cooked bacon has 400 milligrams of sodium. And I don't know too many people that just eat one slice of bacon. Okay, foods with less sodium include fruits and vegetables, fresh poultry, meat, and fish, your home prepared grains and beans like oatmeal, lentils, black beans, spices that don't include salt. Those are all low sodium foods that are low in sodium naturally. We often don't realize how much sodium we're consuming with these products. This is why so many Americans go well over the amount of sodium we're consuming each day, because we're buying processed foods and it's a lot quicker. It's easier. After work, we don't want to spend a lot of time just preparing maybe dried beans. We'd rather use the canned option. So let's see what else we got here. Ooh, we might see some of these phrases on the front of packaging. We don't have that green label like they talked about in the video, but we do have labels that say sodium free, very low sodium, something like reduced sodium, or even it might say light. Looking for these products may help us immediately spot our low sodium items without having to read the nutrition facts on the back. And we'll be doing more label reading in the next seminar. But what do these phrases actually mean? The reduced sodium is a little tricky because it refers to having 25% less sodium than the product usually has. So not necessarily low in sodium, just lower. Whereas the term low sodium means less than or equal to 140 milligrams per serving. That is low sodium. Any comments about that? Okay, now let's look at the percentage on the right, the percent daily value. So this nutrition label says that the sodium is 7% of our daily value. So instead of reading the milligrams, we could just slide over to the right and read the percent. And a quick way to do that is to know that a product that has 5% or less of a certain nutrient, that means it's low in that nutrient. And if a product has 20% or more, that means it's high in that nutrient. So this product is close to 5. It could be considered semi-low in sodium, whereas the added sugar is 20%, and that's high in that nutrient. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's what I've kind of noticed, because I was always looking at sugars because of my surgery, but it seems like when they take something away, they add something else to make up for it.
Yes. When something's low in fat, they have to add the sugar. So that's just a little, a quick way to look and find items that might be high in a nutrient like saturated fat. You could see this one has 5%. So we would say, okay, that's pretty low in saturated fat. I might be purchasing this product based just on the saturated fat. Or, you know, that's pretty high in added sugars. I might not be purchasing that product because it's over 20 or over. Let's take a look at this product with the words light on the front of it. You can see the back of the label, and it says 25% of the sodium. And the front of the label says 25% less sodium. So we know that means it only has 25% less than the normal product. So it's over 20% of its sodium percent daily value. So we know that it's actually high in that nutrient. Even though it's Spam Light, it's still a high sodium product.
I like how they put light, L-I-T-E. Somehow that seems a little even more deceptive, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, because certain words, federally, they have to mean a certain thing. And if they change just the lettering, like you're saying, from light to light, then they don't have to mean that it's less than a certain amount. Yeah, absolutely right. Okay, let's look at some more products. Okay, which beans do you think are the low sodium option here?
the cooked dried beans.
Cooked dried beans. Anybody else? Christine says the dried beans. Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Okay, well, we know that canned beans also come in a low sodium option. If we aren't interested in investing all that time to cook dried beans, we could look for a low sodium canned bean. Another option is rinsing your canned beans with water. That will actually take off some of the sodium. Okay, let's look a little more thoroughly. So I included the low sodium canned beans just to give us a little bit of perspective. So the original black bean can has 380 milligrams of sodium. And then we have the low sodium black beans at 140 milligrams. So that's almost a third of the sodium. And you can still rinse these. And then we have the dried beans. It's a little hard to read, but that comes out at 20 milligrams, 20. That's a big difference from the 380 milligrams of the original black beans. But like I said, sometimes we just don't have the time to make the cooked dried beans. So rinsing your low sodium beans is definitely a good option. All right, how about these two? We have a grilled chicken breast or rotisserie chicken. All right, we have some, yep. So the question mark, is it grilled chicken breast? That's what Brenda says. It could be tricky depending upon how you season your chicken breast. Chicken at home can be low sodium depending upon the seasonings used. And as we talked about earlier, chicken does have some natural sodium in it. So it's important not to overdo with the sodium seasonings. But yes, the correct answer is hopefully grilled chicken breast if you're seasoning appropriately. Now, which snack is the low sodium option? We have dried fruit and roasted nuts. Christine says the fruit. Yeah. Anybody else? Brenda says fruit. Excellent. Yeah, the fruit. Roasted nuts are heavily salted. Buying unsalted nuts helps us reduce the sodium. Even when we think we're eating healthy food like almonds, snacking on almonds, sometimes they can be really high in sodium. And so we just have to look at buying, a lightly salted or no salt nut. And you can still have a healthy snack. Great job. Okay, let's do a little brainstorming. What are some other low sodium foods? I included some on here. We have some grains like oats. We have yogurt. If you're looking at the back of the label, I actually had to look at some labels before I picked the right yogurt, because when we're excluding some things, sometimes they add more sodium to make the flavor better. We got some fresh fruit like cuties. And what I really like to snack on are mini sweet peppers. What are some other low sodium foods? Ooh, eggs. Yeah, yeah. Depending upon as long as you're not putting a whole bunch of salt on there, absolutely. Broccoli, yes. Fruits and vegetables just by themselves are perfect choices for low sodium food options. Homemade salad, yeah, absolutely. Great job. Let's see what else we can include. Spices that don't include salt, fresh poultry and fish. Home prepared grains and beans or other low sodium foods. All right, there are 3 methods we can use to lower our sodium intake. And they're the wording makes them sound complex, but it's not too difficult. So eat high sodium foods less, eat low sodium foods more, and then eat low sodium foods instead of high sodium foods. So we'll take a look at what those three really mean. Okay, the first method is to eat your high sodium foods less often. Maybe instead of eating high sodium foods at every meal, maybe you choose your breakfast meal and not eat any high sodium foods at that time. Or maybe you have pizza 4 times a week, and instead you're going to make it a goal to only have it twice a week. What do you guys think of that?
It definitely makes it sound not as scary, like
Yeah.
it's doable.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not trying to like cut out everything out of our lives. We want to take these small steps that we can sustain for our lifetime. I'm not saying get rid of the pizza. Yeah, Christine said sounds like an easy way to achieve it. Yeah, absolutely. So that's just one idea we have for consuming less sodium. Let's see what our other. Oh, Nicole says get thin crust. Yep, that would reduce some of the sodium. Absolutely. We'll talk about that one. Okay, another option is to eat low sodium foods more. So instead of eating low sodium foods at 1 meal, you might eat low sodium foods at 2 meals. And so these are the foods that we brainstormed just a little bit ago that are naturally low in sodium. So maybe for one of your meals, you're having that, real fresh salad. And so now you want to increase 2 meals with low sodium foods. So maybe you're adding fruit or broccoli or eggs to a second meal. So you're including more of your low sodium foods. How does that sound? Yeah, it definitely sounds like we could do it. Absolutely. Okay. And then the third option, this one is to substitute your low sodium foods for the original. So maybe you have a goal that every time you make chili, you're going to use the cans that say low sodium instead of the original. And that's one of your goals. That's how you're using low sodium foods instead of high sodium foods. And it's just those little differences that really add up. I'm not saying change your whole meal pattern. We want to create lasting changes. Okay, so using all 3 of these methods, we're able to lower our sodium intake in multiple ways. But how could you use these 3 methods in your own life to reduce sodium? Any ideas?
I would say you could probably do more homemade meals so you know how much sodium you're adding into each meal.
Oh, yes. Great idea. Absolutely. Yeah, then you're in control. And Yeah. Great.
I would I need to steer away from canned vegetables. Although I do have no salt green beans, that gets to be a little boring.
Mhm.
More fresh salad sounds so good.
Yeah. It's that time of year too.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. How about eating high sodium foods less often? Anybody thinking about that one? Maybe like cutting back on well, I guess Christine mentioned, just going out less. That's a really good one. Nicole says start checking labels more. Frozen veggies also typically have low sodium. Yeah, absolutely. The great thing about frozen stuff is that you can usually find things that are out of season, but still they're flash frozen in their peak of freshness. So they're ripe. But you could find like berries that might not be in season at that time. Great point, Nicole. What do you see the benefit of reducing sodium? What do you think? Why do it?
I think it reduces your risk of any health-related problems by lowering your sodium for heart attack or potentially stroke or some other very serious conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Start getting serious. Absolutely. Brenda says to live longer and better. Absolutely. So there are definitely reasons why we're doing this. Are any of these ideas that we came up with easy? Are they hard? How can you plan for them being hard to do? Like, for example, maybe you're going to use frozen veggies to save time in the kitchen, or maybe you're going to cook your low sodium meat in the crock pot so it has extra time to marinate in all those flavors, and then store some in the freezer for use later. Anybody see any potential obstacles in their way that maybe we could sort through?
My
My
biggest-
obstacle, oh,
Oh.
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
My obstacle would be preparing lunches ahead of time for my lunchtime eating. So a little bit of prep work would go a long way. But usually because I'm on dinner duty to make food for the rest of the family,
Yeah.
if we don't have any leftovers, I have to kind of make a whole new meal to take the next day.
Yeah. Oh, that's really frustrating.
My biggest obstacle is that I don't drive now, and so I have to rely on somebody else to take me shopping. But I'd like to at least when I was talking to Alyssa last week, we were talking about how getting at least having like once a week where I can have fresh vegetables, rather than the canned stuff. Because I don't drive and I'm at home, I have the luxury, like unlike other people, of making my meals. I buy my. So for people who don't have time, it could be really hard. But that's my obstacle.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Only being able to get the fresh produce so often is definitely tricky. And it just, like you said, you're missing it. You're missing a salad right now. For Christine, I wonder if you could portion out your lunch little dish before you serve everybody, and then say, "Oh, we ran out of food."
That's always a possibility.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Why does reducing sodium work? What do we see as the benefits? We kind of talked about decreasing our fluid retention. We talked about the health awareness, living longer. Does anybody have any of these methods that they think they might introduce this week with reducing sodium?
Yeah, I'm going to go shopping on Wednesday, so I'm going to get myself some salad. Just the
Great.
bag, the bag stuff like the romaine, I think lasts a little longer. So yeah. So that's something that I'm going to do this week.
Awesome. That's a great goal.
My best friend and I, we trade favors for each other. And I gave her some dried beans to go ahead and can in actual cans for me so that I can make my chilies and stuff that have no sodium whatsoever. So that's my hope.
Wow, that is going to be such a lifesaver.
Yeah, and I usually grow a really big garden in the spring and summertime. And so when she cans the beans for me, I give her any of my extra food. And so we kind of help each other out.
Oh, I love that. What a community. And
Yeah.
for me, I think the cooked dried beans, they do taste different compared to the canned beans. You're really just gonna live it up.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, Nicole wants to know if she does canning workshops. I love it. Yeah, have a weekend where you guys just do some cooking and canning. Okay. Well, great work today. It's not over yet, but we came up with a plan. We have some things that are going to be moving us in the right direction. Um, and we have some awareness as to our obstacles and how we're going to overcome those. Up next, we're going to talk about physical activity, our favorite. Okay, remember this slide? This is one of my favorites, absolute favorites. It's showing that all types of activities reduce blood pressure, any of them. It doesn't matter if you don't like running, you don't have to worry about it. Don't use that as your goal because we want to have something that we enjoy doing be part of our goal. So I really like walking and I really like biking. So those are the two things that I always lean against when it comes to exercise. And those are going to be reducing my blood pressure. How were your activity goals the last couple of weeks? Any new or same activities you participated in? Was it easy? Was it hard?
Over the weekend, I went out and found some videos for chair exercises, because yeah. And so because I love to walk, but I can't do it very well. So chair exercises are a lot better for me to do. So I started doing those on Sunday, and man, I didn't realize how horribly
You're feeling
out
it.
of shape I am. Yeah.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, great job.
So I injured my foot last week on Friday, so I'm in a boot.
Oh,
But the blessing is that I'm still able to get up and kind of motor around as needed. So I did an awful lot of outdoor activities, walking through the farmers market, going to my son's soccer game. So I was out and about in full form this weekend. So and
awesome.
it's only difficult because I have the boot on, but other than that, just enjoying some time with my family was great.
Oh, great. You didn't let that obstacle get in your way. You still enjoyed your weekend. That's fantastic. What does Nicole say? She, 15-minute walk. Oh, that's fantastic. I know one day I had to turn to inside activity because it was raining a lot. And so I rode my bike. But then the next time I really wanted to go for a walk and it was drizzling out. So I bundled up the dogs and we all got some green therapy and we just went outside. Sometimes it can just be your clothing, taking your pets or your kids for walks, even in the bad weather, taking the stairs, parking further away. Nicole might mention her sail class.
Is that you waiting for me to talk? Okay, well, I do have a sail class that runs out of the clinic here. It is on Mondays and Thursdays from 10 to 11. And it is just a little exercise class that it helps with balance and mobility and things like that. So I do that twice a week.
Awesome. And so some of the activities are in your chair.
Yeah, they can be seated or standing. We don't do anything on the ground. As you move forward, you can go ahead and add in weights. We do have weights to help progress and resistance bands and things like that, but we start out with just our body weight. And it's actually a pretty decent little workout, even seated. So
Oh, absolutely. And that's indoors?
Yep.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, Nicole. Okay. What are some goals we can set this session? Something manageable, something small, realistic? Maybe enjoying the farmer's market again this weekend?
I just want to keep on doing my, my indoor videos and use those bands that Nicole gave to me. Even though, yeah, like I said, I didn't realize how terribly out of shape I was, but
I think it's awesome to stay consistent with your goals. Absolutely.
And I'm just excited to go back out to the farmer's market. We have more soccer games that are planned,
Oh,
which is great. And yeah, I'm just kind of excited to go out and work in my garden a little bit. I'm
oh yeah,
getting excited for the better
gardening.
weather.
Absolutely. We didn't even mention that with physical activity. Absolutely garden time. Oh, someone says they're going to add more veggies, make sure they have frozen ones stocked up for the days you don't have time to chop the fresh ones. Absolutely. A lifesaver. Absolutely. I also want to just open up this time for you guys to ask any questions that you might have that I didn't touch on.
yeah, I didn't get to go to your label reading class. Do our labels really have the trans fat information on them?
Yes, the trans fat should be on every label now. Food
Wow,
should,
cool.
shouldn't be having trans fat. They came out with some more regulations about that. And so it definitely has made people more aware, and it's made the producers of the food, it's just been a lot more strict on them. So that's great.
So I've had a little, speaking of labels, I've had a little bit of trouble looking at sodium and sugar if there isn't already added sugar.
Mhm.
The added sugar usually has a percentage or a total amount, but regular sugars that are naturally occurring in the food don't necessarily show up.
Yeah.
What is a good kind of rule of thumb to kind of follow when you're looking for the comparison between sugar and salt?
When I'm looking at sugar, I am only looking at the added sugar, not the whole sugar, because like if it's applesauce, I know that there's going to be some natural sugar in the apples. And unless I'm counting carbs and I'm diabetic and the carbohydrates are what's really mattering to me, I'm not paying attention to just the actual sugar, just the added sugar. So like that label we saw today where it said 20% added sugar, I would try to keep your added sugar which 5% or less.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, well, I think we have another class scheduled for May. Nicole, do you know what date it is? Is it the 4th? No, that can't be right. It must be the 8th.
Tis the 8th.
8th. Okay, May 8th is our third out of 4 things, and you can come to whichever ones you want to. We'll be talking more about salt and sodium and purchasing food and talking about label reading. It's going to be really good. And I just want to thank you guys all for having this time today, spending it with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.